In today's show, it's a Trailblazers Media Day preview, asking the questions about the team. Right before we ask the questions to the team, welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. Today's show is going to be a Media Day preview. The Blazers will officially kick off the 2024-2025 season beginning Monday, September 30th. You're listening to Monday, September 30th show. And this morning, around 9 a.m., the Blazers will address the media. First, President Dwayne Hankins, then we'll get a little bit of Joe Cronin, Chauncey Billups, and then the players, and we'll talk to everybody, and we'll get a sense of what's going on, and people will talk expectations and what they did this summer and how they're going to build and the outlook and all of those things. We'll get all of it. It'll be the official kickoff of the season. Media Day in general has probably diminished in overall value because of the nature of modern media. Michael Jordan didn't have a podcast. Penny Hardaway didn't have a podcast. Jason Kidd didn't have a podcast. But now, like the world is like, we hear not only do we like stay connected to, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't have an Instagram account. Neither did Dale Ellis. It's like we not only stay connected to players very closely through social media throughout the year, but like some of them like literally have sit-down media talks. They have like a weekly or, several times a month podcast where they interview players and they tell their stories. And Paul George talks about his relationship with the Sixers like on his own podcast, right? So we get a close look. We get opinions. We get everything like before Media Day. When way back in the day, this was our first chance to get back. So I think the overall value of Media Day has diminished some. It is mostly a chance for the team to cut a bunch of promotional stuff that they'll use through the year. Like, they will do fun games with Brooke Olzendam and Lamar Hurd, and they'll do their little, hype up crowd video stuff and things like that. Like the Portland Trailblazers will probably, media wing, will probably get a fair amount out of it. But you and me, dear listener, might not. And I don't say that to say that I don't plan on attending. I'm going to go tomorrow for sure. I'll be there. I'll ask some questions. I'll do the job of reporter. I call myself past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter. I'm going to do some reporting tomorrow. I still think it's really important. Joe Cronin doesn't address the media very often. I still think it's really important to listen to what he says. But Media Day in general is probably has probably lost a little bit of its value. It's probably not as useful as it once was, utilitarian as it once was, because we know what's up. We know where folks have been and all of those things, right? I also don't think we learn basketball stuff at like we might learn sort of overarching basketball stuff is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about kind of where the Blazers say they are directionally, the sort of theme that we get from the players and Chauncey Billups, and other sort of standouts from player like, general vibes. But I think Media Day, as much as it's about like the Trailblazers like cutting up promos and stuff, it's about branding. It's about branding. The organization has a chance to sit up there and present like a organized direction just to begin the season, to add something to the brand. The actual basketball stuff, which I think there are myriad things, and I'm excited to cover them, and I will for the remainder of this week. Like I think those are there's questions to be answered on that front and things to be discussed, but like that's not really going to get addressed tomorrow. Like we might find out a little bit about Rob Williams' health, but we might find out nothing. We might find out nothing, and we'll find out when the games are played. And if we do find out he's healthy, we're not going to find out how they're going to use Rob. Like, we're not going to find out what his role is going to be. We're not going to find out really about what Scoot's role is going to be. We're not going to get any clarity into the 15th roster spot between Devontae Graham and Delano Banton. That's really what the only sort of camp positional battle is. That's camp stuff. That's training camp stuff. That's preseason stuff. We'll get to that. Media Day is about branding. And so here are the three, what I'm going to lay out today are the three questions, three things I'm going to be looking for in Media Day. It's not really answers. It's big overarching things. It's large thematical trends. And number one starts with Joe Cronin. I think he's the most important person who's going to speak tomorrow in terms of getting a sense of what's next and what's now for the Blazers. And Cronin's most recent public-facing comments, his most recent press conferences, he's been pretty candid in a way that maybe he hadn't been in the past about where the Blazers are at. He said, we're in the early stages of a rebuild, and we're probably not going to be really competitive until our young players improve a lot and take some steps forward. And I think when he spoke at the end of last season, he was very candid about, we're not good enough yet, and we're probably not going to be good enough in a hurry, and the path to us getting good is our young players improving. Now, you might say, well, that was way back. That was way back in April, and now, however many months later we are, 5 months later, it's maybe these guys have taken the leap, and Cronin will change his tune. I'm fascinated by that. That's the number one thing I'm going to be watching. In his recent remarks, he's been so candid about sort of where they are in the rebuild. But at Media Day, you don't often hear teams talk about we might suck, but, or we're going to lose a lot, but that's just not what happens. Even Sean Marks at Nets Media Day, and Brooklyn is going to be almost certainly the worst team in the league record-wise. They're just so light on talent, and they recently traded back for all their draft picks. They're going for it losing wise, right? This is a team destined to lose and lose on purpose. Sean Marks we plan on being competitive. This is a year we plan to be competitive, and we think we have the roster to do it. That's what you say at Media Day. And I don't think there's necessarily a problem with that, because sitting up in front of a microphone and saying, I built a team that is destined to lose and lose on purpose, and that's our goal, is an unsavory thing to say. And it's I think admitting the scourge of tanking has already infected your franchise in September is maybe a misstep. But I'm wondering how far Cronin is willing to go in his admission about the stages of the rebuild they're in. Is he very candid about where they are? Does he kind of come with that little flowery optimism that Media Day often brings? I don't think it's a problem either way, but I think it'll be very telling if he's extremely honest about we, back in April, I didn't think we were, I thought we were a long way away, and the sole veteran addition to the roster is Denny Avdia, and the only other newcomer is 20-year-old rookie. We're probably not drastically better, although I think there's reason to think the Blazers will be better this year than they were last year, but not drastically better to the point where it's they're where the remarks "we're not that close" in April are different than the should be. We're pretty close now in September. I am the number one thing I'm going to be listening for, and number one thing I'm curious about is how honest and upfront is Cronin about that. How Blazers general manager, how honest is Joe Cronin about the position of the team in the present, and how much that will dictate what they do and what they aim to do this year. I think that'll be fascinating, because if he continues to be as upfront and candid as he's been, you might get the rare executive to be we aren't very good, and we know that, and we're in some ways not very good on purpose because we know that we have to grow this group. That wouldn't be outright admitting tanking, but it would be a unique way to approach that. Will he? In terms of times to lie, media day. I would say that's your number one best time to lie, because no one's gonna beat you up for being overly optimistic at media day. You do that again in the middle of the season, you might get bullied a little bit. But I think at media day it's okay to be overly optimistic, just because it's optimism season. It's in the air. I'm curious how far down that path does Joe Cronin walk, or does he walk the other way and kind of be open and honest about the position of the roster that he chose, right? Like he's the dude who makes the decisions. He chose this path. What I want to talk about in the second segment is not branding from the GM, but branding from the players and the coaches. There is, the last couple years we've heard like kind of like these thematical things that pop up, and they pop up like kind of across both coach and players and trickle on down the roster. And it's clear that they are trying to develop an identity. Have those things coalesced at any point? I don't think so, but I want to pay attention to what that is, and what the sort of branding is. Let's talk about that in the second segment. Join me there, won't you? First, though, I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's number one sports book, and right now it's NFL season. In fact, I'm recording this during the end of Sunday Night Football. And if you're an NFL fan, FanDuel wants to make your experience fun. Say you're watching the game, you got a hunch. Say, listen, they're going to score on this play, or I feel an interception coming. Well, FanDuel lets you live bet every game all Sunday long. Plus, they got the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. So say you're watching one game, but you got your eyes on a couple others. Well, you can track them right there on your phone, on your second screen, and then you can place bets as you see fit. And right now, if you're a new user, you get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, and all you got to do is place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right. So last season, coming out of media day, the Blazers, from Billups on down, the Blazers players, the dudes who are going to be like on the sideline on game day, not a little bit higher up in the state and higher up in the stands. Actually, Joe sits on the baseline. There's other executives that sit a little higher up in the stands. Joe sits on the baseline, but on the bench, the on the bench fellows, the coach and the players, they talked about being fast. We're going to play fast. We're going to be so fast. We're going to play so fast. We're going to run. We're not even going to have to call that many plays. We're going to run. We got these athletes. We're going to run. And Joe Cronin did such a good job getting players that fit the bill and fit exactly what we want to do and fit our ethos. And our ethos is going to play fast. And the Blazers are one of the 5 slowest teams in the league in terms of pace and transition frequency. Bottom 10 in the league in both. They weren't a team that played particularly fast. And I don't say this to say like whatever they say is a lie. What I say is they failed to implement the plan. They clearly had an identity that they wanted to pursue on day one. This is like media day one. The guys have been in the gym. Usually NBA vets trickle in like the first week or second week of September. Like Labor Day, young guys come in. The second week, maybe the rest of the vets come in, and then like some veterans came in like this weekend, Saturday night. They showed up back in Portland. That's like kind of the vibe typically around an NBA team. It's like, I know Nikola Jokic in Denver showed up literally the night before media day, and he's earned the right to do that. I'm not sure the Blazers have a Nikola Jokic on the roster. I'm pretty sure they don't. But like in general, some of the players have been back for a month. Others are just getting back, have been back for a week, and others are just getting back this weekend. But they've met, they've talked, they've been at the practice facility. They've had their, they got phones, they're getting text messages from the coaching. There's a branding that's happening, right? There's a, hey, this is what we want to do. This is our vision. This is who we're going to be this year, right? This is like, branding is like lowercase b in this sense. Like, I'm sure they don't see it as a brand. They see it as like this is our plan. This is the strategy that we're going to lay out. But before it was play fast, the branding was, we're going to be the most together team in the NBA. That was the once upon a time branding from Cronin and Billups and company. It was togetherness, and it was that they were going to be so together. They were going to create such a family atmosphere that they were going to be able to overcome some of their talent challenges. That was like a weird way of saying like, we don't expect to be very good, but we're going to like work together to get better. And it was like a creative way of hiding from like, we don't have a high level of confidence on this team's ability to compete. Later, within a few months, the franchise icon would request to be traded. So we'll see if that one worked as well. We'll check back in a couple of years to see if that plan worked as well. If the Kumbaya togetherness branding was an effective one. Again, I'm not saying like whatever the players and Chauncey Billups say tomorrow, or excuse me, today, later this morning as you're listening to this. I guess if you're an audio listener, I'm gonna put this up late Sunday night. So like tomorrow, if you're making this your first listen the night of. But for your YouTube viewers, like we're minutes away from Media Day kicking off. I'm not saying it's all a lie. Like I don't mean that. What I mean is like, what is the thing they want to accomplish this year? And is there a united thematical thing that ties that goal and that vision together? Because, as mentioned in the first segment, no one's going to be mad at you for being optimistic this time of year. This is optimism time, right? This is the time to load up the optimism cannon and fire it as far as you can, because you might not get another opportunity to. You might be a week into the season and be like, well, probably can't load that cannon up again. I mean, or whatever it might be, a month into the season, and like you're kind of the harsh reality sets in, right? And sports are cruel. But I wonder what this year's branding is going to be from Billups. Like, what does he see this? This is his final, this is the final year of his contract. He's got a team option for next year, but they haven't picked it up. And letting him coach a lame duck season is an awkward thing in the NBA that pretty rarely happens. It's usually a sign like that you're on your way out. Some coaches even quit beforehand because they don't want to do it. Like, it's just an awkward situation to put you in. What does Chauncey Billups view as this year, as a make or break year? Because the thing that's going to help him keep his job is not necessarily winning, right? I don't even think the franchise wants to win. So it's not, Chauncey isn't like there isn't a world in which Chauncey Billups rallies the troops to 42-40 season, and it's viewed as a good thing. Like he would specifically be sort of like overachieving, and it would be perhaps viewed as a negative internally. I know that there were times during the Terry Stotts era when it was unclear to the coaching staff whether the front office wanted them to win or not. Sometimes those things are at odds. But I'm curious how Billups brands this season. What's his view? And it doesn't have to be togetherness. Like, play fast is a basketball thing. Like, so maybe this year it's like we want to share the ball more, right? Like last year we wanted to pass more, we just never got to it. We were incredibly isolation heavy. But this year, with some new coaches on the staff and kind of a new vision, and as our young guys get a little more comfortable, we think we can like get up to. I know there was a point last year with the Blazers. I heard Jonah Hurskew say this once. One of their assistant coaches, that they want to have 200 passes a game or 500 passes a game. They had like a statistical number. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but it was like they had a number they want to hit. We want to share the ball a bunch. What if that's the branding, right? And I wonder if that branding, when I think about it, like, does that carry down to the vets, particularly the vets? If the young guys say it, sure. Like, that's like if Donovan Clingan comes out and kind of repeats something similar to what Chauncey Billups said, that's great. That's good. That he did a good job listening, right? He read his text messages. But I'm curious, like, players with experience in the league. What does DeAndre Ayton say? What does Matisse Thybulle say? Avery Simons, particularly Jeremy Grants. What are those guys? Do they echo the sentiments of the coach? Do they echo the sentiments of their fellow players? Do they echo the sort of the vibe that was Joe Cronin had put out as well? Like, are they all on the same page? And the way that they were all on the same page last year is that we're going to play fast and we're going to play to our strengths, and we've got a team that fits an identity, and this is our ethos and this is our skill set, and we're going to make them finally mesh. Or we're going to be so together. The vibes are going to be good, and we like each other, and we think, well, like. Does the branding extend across the roster? Is it something that clearly they've discussed, and does it feel authentic as they all discuss it going forward? That's a media day thing to watch. That ain't basketball. That's blah, blah, blah branding. The other thing to watch is a vibe check. How's everybody doing? Let's talk about how's everybody doing. How everybody doing in the third segment. Join me there, won't you? First, though, I want to tell you about Gametime. It's the place for last-minute tickets. It's the app that rewards you for procrastinating. Gametime's got just quick curated picks, right? So you pick up your phone, you say, Gametime, do work your magic, and they'll just say, you want to sit downstairs? Here's the seat we recommend. Bang. Here's the best section with the best deals. Bang. 2 clicks. I want to go to a Trailblazers game. I want to sit downstairs. PrizePicks is going to find you the best deal. And the more you use it, the smarter they'll be at figuring out exactly what you want and your price range and all of that. Or if you're a first timer, what I like about the app, pick it up, search for what you want to go to, the venue that you're looking for, whether that's sports or comedy or live theater or concerts or whatever. The venue's going to pop up right on your phone. You can click. I like to toggle in all-in pricing, so you get what you see is what you get. If it says it's going to cost you $71, it's going to cost you $71. There's no surprises. Plus, you can click on the view from your seat and look, digital view from exactly what it's going to look like from the seat you just chose. So take the guesswork out of buying last-minute tickets. Download the Gametime app. Create an account. Use the redemption code Locked on NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use the redemption code Locked on NBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked on Blazers. So we talked about the Cronin, talked about some branding from Billups, and does that carry on down the roster. The other thing that I think is important to watch during media day is just a general vibe. Because I think sometimes, I'm thinking of 2 players from last year when I say this. DeAndre Ayton was overwhelmingly confident. It's dominating. It's what I do. But it felt in many ways rehearsed. This wasn't someone who was, this was someone who was talking you into it as much as he was talking himself into it. And it felt at the time, it was like, dominating, it's what I do. It's like, it's not, it hasn't been what you do. It could be, right? But it hasn't been what you do. And it felt, this felt like someone who was, saying the thing that they're supposed to say because they've been in town for 3 days. And it's like, you just are, you're going through the media day, sort of, the circus, right? And part of the circus is like you did a whole bunch of stations and media stuff in the back. Then they bring you out in front of the media and a bunch of dummies ask you questions. And it's just like, how can I get through this? And what am I supposed to say? Like, what are these supposed to sound like? And some guys kind of just like do the dance of what it's supposed to say. There's an inauthenticity to it. Inauthenticity. That's the word I'm looking for. It just has, it doesn't come off as honest. It comes off as more rehearsed, right? And the reverse of that, I'm thinking about a very, the vibe from Scoot Henderson. He had so much bravado, so much charisma. His charisma, uniqueness, and talent was on display on media day, right? And then when he talked to the media, like when he got back from injury, maybe a month into the season, it was like that joy, that light had dimmed a little bit. It can be hard to know, and it's much easier to learn, and it's much easier to like sort of think about in hindsight what guys were like at media day. But I think this season has some interesting characters to track. I am curious what Scoot Henderson year 2 is like. I am curious what DeAndre Ayton year 2 is like. I'm fascinated by the vibe coming from Anfernee Simons, a guy who last time we spoke to him publicly said he wants to be part of a team that's more competitive. Does adding Denny Avdia make him feel like, yep, we're way more competitive, I'm comfortable here? I don't expect Anfernee Simons to demand a trade, but what is his vibe, right? Does he put on the good face? Is it clear that he's putting on a good face? Or does he seem like candidly more at peace with where he is? Jeremy Grant didn't do exit interviews, right? He's like, I don't want to do that. When he comes back, like when he's back and talks, like what is Jeremy Grant like, right? Last time Jeremy Grant spoke to the media at last media day, he just got paid a whole bunch of money. It's like going into the season with a whole bunch of money. This year, it's different. He was in trade rumors, so it's. Do young guys, I'm curious, I'm fascinated by those guys. I'm fascinated by some of the young, like back half of the roster guys. Does Shaedon Sharpe or does a Jabari Walker or even like a Ryan Rupert, Chris Murray to some extent, like do they seem like markedly more mature? I think Jabari Walker is a really good talker. He's a good interview and it's just like good in front of the microphone. But like, is there a marked maturity increase from those guys in sort of understanding what needs to be done? That doesn't need to be like vibrant or upbeat necessarily, but you can feel someone who's got a little more oomph, a little more understanding of sort of what it means to be a pro ball player and what it means to be an NBA guy, and you can get a feel for that growth and maturity. Are there guys who are just happy? Like, do you like straight up? This is a Pro Joy podcast. Are there guys who come in and are like, you get the sense that the grind of the NBA season is something that they love and they're about to jump back into it and they are truly happy heading back in? Who hits the who ranks really high on the joy meter? I think that's a fascinating one. And then like who's particularly upbeat and particularly veterans, right? Young guys are going to be upbeat. They don't know. Don McCling's going to be hyped. This is his first season. He's going to be hyped. They don't know. But are some of the vets, some of the Matisse Thybulle types, and again, and Ayton and Nance and Jeremy, like are they particularly upbeat? Are they particularly beat down? Even is there a world where they seem like, no one's gonna be like out and out negative or whatever? That's pretty rare at media day. But is there like if you expect most guys to be turned up to be like a 7+, or any of these dudes like hovering right around a 5, and you're like, that dial's not turned up as hot as or as high as you think it would be for this time of year. I'm curious about just sort of the general vibe and who exceeds, like who is like way different than you expected in either direction. Not that that's particularly telling in the moment, but I think it's something to file away, right? Like with DeAndre Ayton in the moment, I was like, wow, this guy, he is so happy to be here, right? Like he is so thankful to be in Portland. And then looking back, it's like, was he, or was he just putting on a face, right? Like, I think he wanted to be maybe really happy to be here, but that wasn't his necessarily his reality, right? So I don't think these are necessarily knowable things, but I think the vibes one way or another are important to just mark down. Remember what he was like at Media Day. Remember his interview at Media Day, because then you can, hindsight's 2020, but like when you do a bunch of these shows, remembering the sort of shift in vibes, I think is important. And when you listen to a bunch of these shows, remembering the shift in vibes is really important, because you're going to follow the team closely and kind of read the tea leaves a bunch. So who hits the ends of the spectrum in terms of emotion and excitedness or lack thereof? I think that's an important thing to track. Once Media Day's done, it's basketball. Roster decisions, minutes crunches, minutes battles, all those things. That's what we're going to cover the rest of the week, right? Is the interesting, I don't think there's a ton of minutes battles. I think the rotation is mostly set, but I think there's some back half of the rotation stuff where guys can move in and out. There's a 15th roster spot to play for. There's a backup center discussion to be had one way or another. There's some basketball stuff. But Media Day isn't really about basketball stuff. It's about all of the other stuff. And so I hope you listen to this prior to Media Day and kind of arm yourself with those tools, right? Pay attention to the vibes, to the branding, to all of those things, because while they might not give you the perfect picture in the moment, like on the evening of September 30th, they really help draw the outline and help you trace back when you're trying to find a through line, or through line is what I'm looking for, a through line for the season. You can kind of see it start to come together at Media Day. And then as you look back in December and in January and in March, you're like, oh yeah. And it all starts to come together a little clearer for you. So watch the vibes, watch the blah, blah, blah branding and all of that, and then come back for tomorrow's show. I will have a reaction to everything we learned at Media Day, everything you need to know, plus we'll talk real basketball stuff later in the week. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.